My spoiled sister stole my inheritance, so I took everything from her. I grew up in what seemed like a perfect family. My parents were loving, supportive, and always seemed to put on the ideal show for the neighbors. We had a house in the suburbs, with manicured lawns, a 2-car garage, and plenty of family vacations to make us seem like we had it all together. But there was always a catch. Ivy, my younger sister, was the apple of our parents' eye from the moment she was born. It started out small, just typical sibling rivalry stuff. But as the years went on, it became glaringly obvious. My sister was the golden child, and I was just there. It didn't matter what I did. If I got straight A's, Ivy got an A+ on her report card. If I worked a part-time job to help out, Ivy would come home with new clothes from a shopping spree. If I tried to get some attention, my parents would brush me off with a later while they were busy admiring Ivy's latest achievements. By the time I was 18, it felt like I didn't even exist to my parents. Ivy was their world, and I was just their reliable child, the one who wouldn't make any waves. So I stayed quiet, worked harder, and kept my emotions to myself. But deep down, it hurt. As we entered our adult lives, the imbalance between Ivy and me only grew wider. Ivy was never required to do anything. She was spoiled rotten by both parents. At 22, she still lived at home, while I was working full-time and going to school. I remember working my second job at a local cafe, while Ivy went off on a month-long trip to Europe with my parents' credit cards. I was expected to simply be responsible. Meanwhile, Ivy went off on one adventure after another, always smiling, always carefree. Her life was easy, and I couldn't understand how everything seemed to fall into her lap while I was struggling just to keep afloat. Then came the day that everything changed. Our parents had been getting sick for a while, but I wasn't prepared for what would happen after they passed. They left us everything, the house, the money, the cars, everything they had built in their lives. At least, that's what I assumed. When the lawyer called us together for the reading of the will, I sat down, expecting a fair division. Maybe I'd get some of the house, some of their investments. But instead, the will was read aloud, and my stomach dropped. Ivy was the sole heir. I couldn't believe it. How could they leave everything to her? I had spent so many years taking care of them, running errands, making sure they were comfortable in their old age. And Ivy? She was nowhere to be found during their last few months. The lawyer told me I had been left a few old pieces of jewelry, some mementos, and that was it. The house? Gone to Ivy. All of it. Every last cent of the inheritance went to my sister. I was numb. Completely numb. It was like everything I had done in my life didn't matter. All those years of working hard, of being responsible, and of sacrificing for my family. None of it meant anything. My sister was handed it all without lifting a finger. I confronted Ivy, of course. I asked her how she could have done this, how she could have let this happen when I was the one who had been there for our parents when they needed someone. But Ivy wasn't sorry. Not at all. In fact, she seemed to think she deserved it. Well, I guess I just have that kind of luck, she said with a smirk. You're always so serious, so boring. I'm the one who knows how to have fun. They probably saw that in me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her she was delusional, but I held it in. It wasn't worth it. That night, something clicked. I realized that this wasn't just about an inheritance. It was about years of unfairness. I'd worked my entire life to be the responsible one, the dependable one, the one who would carry the weight. And yet, here I was, with nothing. But Ivy, she had everything, and she didn't even have to try. I thought about it for a long time, too long. But eventually, I decided I wasn't going to just let her get away with this. She didn't deserve it. Not after everything she'd done to manipulate our parents into giving her the world. She took everything from me, and now it was time to take everything back. I didn't have a lot of money to fight back. Ivy had the lawyers, the resources, the support. But I had something she didn't. Determination. I spent weeks researching the law, trying to find a loophole in the will. I found a clause about undue influence. It turned out that Ivy's overbearing personality and the way she had manipulated my parents could have affected the validity of the will. I spoke with a lawyer who specialized in inheritance disputes. He listened to my case, and together we started preparing to contest the will. The battle began. I filed my claim, stating that the will was unfairly influenced by Ivy's constant manipulation and emotional blackmail. Ivy fought back, of course. She hired a top-tier lawyer and started throwing money at the problem. She tried to discredit me, telling anyone who would listen that I was just bitter. Ivy's world, the one she'd so carefully constructed, was falling apart, and she didn't like it. As the case dragged on, Ivy began to feel the pressure. The money she had taken from the inheritance was slowly slipping away. She had spent it all on new clothes, luxury items, and extravagant vacations. But now, with the legal fees stacking up, she didn't have nearly as much as she thought. And that's when things started to fall apart for her. The house she had inherited was too expensive to maintain. She could barely afford the mortgage and the property taxes. Her credit cards were maxed out. I could see the cracks forming in Ivy's perfect life. It was almost poetic. The life she'd built by taking everything from me was now slipping right through her fingers. I wasn't just sitting around waiting for the court to decide. I started taking back what was rightfully mine. It wasn't just the house. I began reclaiming family heirlooms that Ivy had already sold, artwork that had been passed down through generations, and other valuable items that I knew she had either sold or hidden away. It wasn't easy, but I was meticulous. I knew exactly what Ivy had taken, and I slowly started reclaiming everything item by item, piece by piece. The day of the final hearing arrived. Ivy had hired a team of expensive lawyers, and she was confident she would win. She still thought everything was hers, but I wasn't about to let her get away with it. The judge listened to our arguments, and I presented my evidence proof of Ivy's manipulation, the undue influence she had over our parents, and the blatant unfairness of the will. The decision was made, and I won. The will was partially overturned. I was granted half of the estate, including the house, the savings, and several valuable pieces of art and jewelry that Ivy had taken. Ivy was furious. She tried to appeal, but it didn't matter. She had lost, and now she had to deal with the consequences of her actions. The money she had wasted was gone, and her life, once so full of luxury and carefree adventures, was now unraveling. I didn't feel good about it, not really. It wasn't about revenge, but it was about fairness, and I had spent years being the good child while Ivy took everything. I wasn't about to let her walk away with it all. Years have passed, and Ivy's life is still in turmoil. As for me, I've rebuilt my life from the ground up. I've started a family, bought my own house, and even gone